The reality in America is for decades and decades and decades, it's been whatever administration turned a blind eye.
Welcome back to Media Madness. My name is Thomas, and today we are discussing Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Georgia representative who broke ranks with Donald Trump and the rest of the Republican Party over the shutdown this weekend. This has been making a lot of big waves. Now, I'm no fan of Marjorie. I think she's a deeply unimpressive and not that bright as a person, but I will say in her defense that she is a person. She is not a blind partisan, and she's willing to break ranks with her party on issues that I generally agree with, typically on foreign policy or populist issues of various sorts. So she went on CNN this weekend to sort of blast Republicans for stymieing the end of the government shutdown, which we have now entered the second or third week of. I don't even remember. So she gets on CNN to talk with Wolf Blitzer and his minion. She goes on for a couple minutes about healthcare being expensive, which I just don't care about because I have zero faith in her or Congress generally's ability to do anything useful about it or really about much of anything. I'm so jaded about Congress.
The Washington Post poll. It shows that 47% of Americans believe that President Trump and the Republicans are mainly responsible for the shutdown. You see it here on the screen, compared to just 30% of Americans who blame Democrats. Of course, Republicans are the ones with the power. Do you agree with Americans in that poll that see the shutdown as your party's fault?
You know what? I don't think the shutdown is popular for either side. And so I see the shutdown.
That grin, but like she's saying something
completely
revolutionary
different
here.
from maybe my party leadership. And I'm not putting the blame on the president. I'm actually putting the blame on the speaker and Leader Thune in the Senate. This should not be happening. And I don't think, look, as a member of Congress, we already have a low enough job approval rating. This shutdown is just going to drive everybody's approval rating that much lower.
Okay, I mean, it's like, I'll be totally honest with you. These conversations about the shutdown are so Washington-brained. I know they affect people, your everyday Americans in certain ways, but it's like fundamentally the main consequence of a government shutdown is that a bunch of people in D.C. aren't getting paid for a while, for however long it lasts. As someone who obviously works in the private sector, I can't find it in me to find all that much sympathy for federal congressional staffers. I mean, I interned on Capitol Hill a couple years ago while I was in college, and it's hard to come away from Capitol Hill without anything but absolute contempt for the institution and everyone who works in it. And to discuss congressional approval ratings, I mean, dude, like they have been in the teens at the highest for decades at this point, and I have seen nothing promising out of Congress that might reverse or retard that sort of endless downward trend. So, I mean, listen, I just don't have very much sympathy for anyone who is affected in a serious way by the shutdown, especially if they're federal workers. I don't care about your approval rating.
But so you're putting the blame on the leadership of your party.
Absolutely. We control the House. We control the Senate. We have the White House. I've been vocal saying, you can use the nuclear option in the Senate. This doesn't have to be a shutdown. But what we have to do is we have to work for the American people. And our country is so divided right now. We see it all the time in every single way. It's divided in what I would say very dangerous ways. And we saw that with the recent assassination of Charlie Kirk, which has upset so many people across the board. And
what does that have to do with the shutdown?
Look, when it comes to hearing from senior citizens or my own friends and neighbors and my own family members and people that voted for me, and they're just saying, Marjorie, we just really want somebody to do something about health insurance premiums. We really want our government.
Marjorie, I really just want to abolish the House of Representatives. We can keep the Senate, but it's just honestly, I think that people like Marjorie, or anyone in the House, to be honest, they don't do anything useful at all. I really think that they exist to do their hearings, which never end up going anywhere. They get good political theater. They get clips that people like us, journalists, diligently write up, and nothing ever happens. I mean, the Senate, it's like you have actual decisions over appointments and things that matter. I just am not seeing, I know the House has the power of the purse and whatever. I know on paper what they do, but it's just, it's a den of the most unimpressive people on the planet, and I don't see the point of it. All of that being said, I do think I'm concentrating my hatred for the Congress into, and throwing it at Marjorie Taylor Greene, which maybe isn't fair. For all of the things I've said about her so far, I do think that someone like her, and even her foil, AOC, on the other side of the aisle, serves a necessary purpose in our democracy, if you will. She is beating the drum on our not-so non-interventionist foreign policy, our relationship with Israel, our lack of economic populism, things that deserve a faction, whether you agree with them or not, and representation in the Republican Party. You know, she is making noise about these things, and she is motioning towards them. And I appreciate that. She's not a party apparatchik in the pure sense. So I do appreciate Marjorie for this. Her existence does kind of annoy me, though, just on the basis that I think we deserve, as a country, a higher caliber of politician. I mean, when you think about the people who founded this country, who populated the original presidential cabinet and administrations, these were, you know, it was a spattering of like polymaths and Renaissance men and people who in any time period would have been considered insane geniuses, and now it's just a floor show of Marjorie Taylor Greene and AOC and Jasmine Crockett, and it's just a clown show. It's embarrassing. I'm gonna move on from this shutdown talk because it's boring, basically. And go to another interview that Marjorie did this weekend with Tim Dillon, the comedian. One of the things she said that made a lot of people angry was her diminishment of what she thinks the president's immigration policy ought to be, on the basis that it's mean, essentially, that we're taking away people who've been here too long, that that removing illegal immigrants can threaten certain critical sectors of our economy. These are a lot of the same justifications we heard from the Democratic Party on immigration and open border policies for the past decade now.
I'm not against the president. I think a lot of it is some staff things. But even if it is the president, no matter what your position is, if you're not willing to say, this isn't what we said we were going to do.
Right.
This is not what America First is.
Mass deportations is what we said
If
we
they're
were going to do.
not willing to do that, then they're not going to have my support, and I don't know what that means in the future.
We need a border. We need the rule of law, obviously.
Oh my gosh.
Is there
Secure
a
border.
better way to do these ICE raids? I think Trump's losing support amongst, they did a poll recently about Latinos. Is there a better way, a more humane way to conduct some of these?
I don't really care if we're losing Latino support. I mean, the ICE raids is what I want to happen. If you're not here legally, you got to go.
I think there are a lot of people that go, we want a border, we need a country, and that certain people also need to be deported. Absolutely. But when people see children being zip-tied or a grandmother being...
We reacted to that earlier. This was a fake
zip-tied, and these are people who've maybe lived in a community 30 years, and they're not committing a crime. They're here illegally. We know that. To me, you see a lot of people that are, more moderate types, people like myself that very much want a border and a country.
Right.
But I look at, showing up to a high school graduation and deporting someone's father. I go, this seems to a lot of people to be inhumane.
Yeah, that's hard to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I love Laken Riley's mother and sister
Of course.
and her family.
Yeah.
And so I have to say, oh boy, do I want to deport any illegal criminal like that.
Right.
That's horrific.
Yeah.
Horrific. And having a secure border, oh hell yeah. Unapologetically.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here comes the
immigration laws, you have to follow our immigration laws. Those are our laws.
Right.
Me and you can't go to, say, Mexico or Colombia or Brazil, and we can't overstay our visa and not expect to get arrested and deported.
The
Like
old
that's
double standard conservative argument. It's the most sophisticated in
However,
our arsenal.
let's be in reality for a minute.
Yeah.
The reality in America is for decades and decades and decades, it's been whatever administration turned a blind eye, even Ronald Reagan.
Yeah, big time.
Ronald Reagan was the worst president we have ever had for immigration. I really think we need to abandon him as this sort of icon of whatever we're trying to do here. He was horrible for everything we're trying to do. So please, I will stomach no
Shit.
Reagan lionization.
My goodness. California
Republicans
turned
wanted cheap
right.
labor, and yeah.
Yes, and so we have, and I own a construction company.
Right.
So I'm going to speak
Here we go.
from very real experience. We have a labor force in America across many industries that has been built on illegal labor. That's a fact. That also cannot be ignored.
Right.
And I'll say it like this. The same way I look at the health insurance industry and I'm analyzing, we need to build an off-ramp, but an off-ramp is gradual, right? Off of the Affordable Care Act, off of Obamacare into some sort of new system that is much better. I also look at this problem that we have with illegal immigration, that we can build an off-ramp there. And as a conservative and as a business owner in the construction industry and as a realist, I can say we have to do something about labor, and that needs to be a smarter plan than just rounding up every single person and deporting them just like that.
Now, I know I've probably been a bit uncharitable to Marjorie in this episode so far, so I'm going to end this video on a note of agreement with Marjorie, and where she's talking about our foreign policy and some of our
You've
alliances
been one of the
in the Middle
more
East.
vocal opponents of AIPAC, of the incredible amount of influence that AIPAC's lobbying efforts have over people in Congress. And most people don't know what AIPAC is.
Right.
Or, I got to be honest, I knew what it was, but I was unaware of the level of influence that it had. I thought it was a lobbying group like any other group. The more and more you learn about AIPAC, the more and more you question why it's not registered, right, as a foreign government lobbying.
Absolutely.
And, when you see Netanyahu in the White House all the time, when you see policies that most Americans, I think, find abhorrent, starvation of children.
Terrible.
And by the way, I don't think that's because Americans hate Israel. I don't think they do.
I don't hate Israel.
I don't think any.
I mean, you look at some of the polls coming out now; they're certainly starting to.
I don't really
hate
know
Jewish
anyone
people.
who does.
No, I don't know anybody that does either. As a matter of fact,
Right. So, but they're looking at this. Any criticism, I've lost friends. I've had people unfollow my social media accounts, which is in my generation as a 40-year-old, that's very hard. But these are prominent people.
right.
One of them runs CBS News. Who cares? But over this issue, and I voiced dissent, but by the way, not even nearly what other people said. I was just like, we got to end
Yeah, I mean, it is one of these issues on which people fly off the handle if there's any level of disagreement at all, especially from the pro-Israel camp. I'm very happy that we're getting to a point now on the right and as a party where we can have a more serious conversation about what we're getting out of our relationship with Israel, which is not a whole lot. It seems like we're getting a lot of trouble, in fact. There is, though, among mostly older conservatives, and maybe some of you watching will be among them, who are sort of unwavering in their support for Israel. There's nothing at all that could deter them from enthusiastically supporting this ally in the Middle East. And for that reason, I think it's going to take some time before we can properly re-examine that relationship and how useful it is to us. But all that being said, I mean, I think what Tim is saying and what Marjorie has said a million times about AIPAC not being registered as a foreign lobbying organization, about their undue influence over our foreign policy, over our thinking about places like Iran and in other engagements in the Middle East, it's obscene. It is completely obscene. And it's really hypocritical that we're not seeing the same attitude towards Israel that we see about Ukraine, about any other foreign entanglement that we have been condemning for decades now. And to the extent that it's politically expensive to come out with a position like this, I can respect Marjorie Taylor Greene. So yeah, I mean, that's really all I have to say about her. I don't really spend a lot of time thinking about Marjorie. She's not, or really anyone in Congress. I think Congress is a largely performative institution at this point. So I mean, for any faults she has, I think she can be forgiven. I just don't want her occupying some high-level cabinet position in the next Republican administration. I think that'd be bad. But anyway, that's all I got for you today. Thank you for watching Media Madness, and have a good Columbus Day, guys, or Indigenous Peoples Day, if you prefer. Anyway, take care.